Representative Josh Kail is a Republican from Beaver County and Washington County. Now, you're part of a team of legislators who've created a competitiveness caucus. What is that? Why did you create it?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to explain what we're trying to do. Look, what we have found over the course of the last number of years, going across the Commonwealth, talking to legislators and both sides of the aisle, both parties, is that Pennsylvania is losing. And we're losing in a number of statistics that show that our people are moving out of the Commonwealth and going to other places. I personally appreciate that because I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and I saw many of my siblings spread across the country. Many of them still live outside the country. I'm one of 7, or outside the Commonwealth, excuse me. I'm one of 7. And still today, 20 years later, you're seeing a situation where we have not improved our environment to keep our kids here in Pennsylvania. And that's something that both parties can get behind. The governor has talked a lot about competitiveness and making sure that the Commonwealth is winning. But what needs to occur, in my estimation, is the legislature needs to lead on issues to ensure that these aren't just empty words. We can't just say that we want to be competitive and then not do anything about it. So our goal is to really get into the details of what needs to change in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, whether it's with permitting, whether it's with taxes, whether it's with keeping our streets safe, or whatever the issue might be across this very diverse and large state. So I'm looking forward to traveling around the state, to bringing a perspective from Western Pennsylvania and making sure that that perspective's heard, while also listening to perspectives from other representatives and senators from other parts of the Commonwealth, so that we can come together and kind of cut the political stuff out and move forward for the sake of our Commonwealth, for the sake of our kids and their generation.
Now, this is a caucus. Can you explain what a caucus is within the General Assembly and what they do? Yeah,
so certain groups of people have common interests, and some caucuses focus on particular industries, like the manufacturing caucus. Some caucuses focus on particular issues, like the gun rights caucus, the Second Amendment caucus. There's other caucuses that focus on an array of issues. This one, in particular, is a group of legislators coming together with the understanding that we are going to work across the aisle, that we're going to work with the Senate, which sometimes can be more difficult to work with the Senate than it is across the aisle. But I'm not blaming the Senate on that, by the way. That very much could be our fault as well. But we're all coming together and saying, okay, let's put the swords down. Let's use some plows, and let's actually build something here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I think what we have found, especially in such a closely divided House, right now the House of Representatives is 101 to 101. In Harrisburg, you have that in the House of Representatives. You have a closer, but still, relevant minority in the Senate, where you have Democrats have some say in the process, but Republicans have the majority. But then you also have a Democrat governor. So if you look at this picture, it makes sense that we got to find things that we agree on. So let's come together. Let's see if there's things that we can agree on that move the Commonwealth forward. Permitting reform should not be an ideologically driven issue. The fact that it takes years sometimes to get a permit done, it should not be a Republican issue or a Democrat issue, excuse me. It should be an issue that we all can get behind and realize that that's what it's going to take to grow our economy. Keeping our streets safe, same thing. Some energy issues. There's things that we can get behind, and I'm excited to explore what they are.
Well, let's talk about the permitting issue. How do people find common ground on it, or what are the obstacles right now?
That is a fantastic question. In the last cycle, we talked to a lot of stakeholders from around the entire Commonwealth, and it's just we have heard a number of different things. It's not just one issue. One of the issues is the inherent complexity of living in a Commonwealth, because you do have townships and municipalities, and you have county governments, and you have state governments, and you got to deal with the federal government in some instances. So there's all these layers of government that can cause a bureaucratic mess. But in particular, as it relates to the Commonwealth, what we have found is certain agencies just refuse to really do things in an efficient manner. And trying to get an answer as to why that is has been a very, very difficult task. The only response that we have gotten as legislators, which I firmly believe is unacceptable, is we need more money. They don't answer to why this particular permit is delaying this many years in some instances. Some instances, and it's a special case, but there's an instance we found where the stakeholder, municipality, was telling us it was decades a permit was in the making. It was with a dam, it was in Washington County, and it was, a complicated issue, but decades for a permit, like, that's completely unacceptable. Here is the mindset that does frustrate me as a legislator, and really my background is business. I was an attorney as well. I practice law, and I also own a small business, do legal work for businesses like that. The mindset in Harrisburg is challenging, because they don't look at it as though we are public servants doing the work of the Commonwealth, it seems. And this isn't, obviously, I'm painting with a broad brush. But in balance, it seems as though the mindset is, you got to come through us. If you want anything done in this Commonwealth, you got to come through Harrisburg, and you got to come kiss the ring, and you got to do this and that. And it's within these agencies. And you have a governor who, which is a great thing, has been talking about reforming permitting, and he has done some things with business licenses, and that's okay. But what really matters, and if you talk to stakeholders from around the Commonwealth, what really matters are the Department of Environmental Protection permits, or the permits coming from PennDOT, and those permits have not improved. So it will take a process. It'll take the governor being involved in the process, but administrations, both Republicans and Democrats, have failed on this issue. This is a decades, maybe centuries-long issue, and it's time for the legislature to act. These agencies need to be reminded that they are public servants, and they are here to do the work of the public. And I think that's something that we can get bipartisan support behind. This isn't. We're not even talking about issues. We're not even talking about cutting corners. We're not talking about regulatory reform per se. What we're talking about is having a system that is done in a thoughtful and efficient way. There's no reason why we can't have that. In fact, we have seen it happen, right? When I-95 shut down, the permits were done in days. And that was great, and we needed that to be done in days because it was an emergency situation. But no one's going to tell me that they cut corners building I-95. There's no way they did. They did everything right. They were just focused on a mission to accomplish that. I would like to see that type of effort across the Commonwealth in my backyard, where there are bridges that are shut down in the southern part of Washington County that no one has paid attention to, but because there's not as much traffic, it takes years to get a permit. So we can do it. We've shown that we can do it. It's just, do we have the political will to power through? And it's not even ideological political will. It's just persistence and resilience, and just keep going at it and letting people know that we got to change how we operate in Harrisburg.
How easy or difficult is it to start a business in Pennsylvania?
So there are some upsides. The low personal income tax, 3.404%. It ought to be lower in my estimation, but that is pretty low, and that means that small businesses have a lower tax rate, but not easy enough. Let's put it that way. There are too many burdens that business owners have to go through. There's, of course, licensing issues and things of that nature, but that's not really. We could talk about that, and it's annoying that we had to wait much longer, and now we don't. That's a good thing. But the real issues are cost of insurance. The real issues are general business environment, cost of energy, cost of goods. The real issues are whether or not you can build out your location in a timely fashion so you can get open and start making money. Because when you start a business, the clock starts. You got to hire people. And then when you hire people, you got to pay people, which means money is going out. And so you got to be producing something. We dealt with that firsthand in my personal life, where it's a challenge, and it's something that business owners understand and appreciate. And the last thing that they want is obstacles being placed by state government, like a delay in a permit for no apparent reason. And so That's certainly a frustration. I don't want to speak disparagingly, but I'm pretty sure objective numbers have shown Pennsylvania in pretty bad shape as it ranks to starting a business. There's one just a couple of years ago that had us pretty close to the bottom. I have not seen the most recent ratings that they do in Site Magazine and other business journals, but I can't imagine it's very high on the list.
How well is Pennsylvania doing with recruiting businesses from out of state?
So, there's not well enough. Certainly not well enough. In fact, I would say poor. And my background is, and what I understand because of my district, right, and because of my legal background, manufacturing, energy, those types of opportunities. There's also industries that are across the Commonwealth that are foreign to Western Pennsylvania, but that are prospering but still struggle. Look, here's our problem. As far as I'm concerned, as far as growth and bringing people here, I've talked to numerous developers and site owners and people looking to potentially build large-scale manufacturing operations. That's just one industry, but I'm going to talk to it because I'm familiar with it. And they have told me uniformly that we're lucky that people even talk to me. And the reason they say that is predominantly three reasons. Number one is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. There is a real concern that the instability in our utility rates is going to cause skyrocketing energy costs. And in manufacturing, in any business really, but especially in manufacturing, energy costs is one of your top costs. Number two is our net operating loss provisions, which we are working on. That's another thing the Competitive Caucus wants to work on and really build on the momentum that we had last cycle. And number three that I've been told about is what we have talked about here is permitting, is the how long it takes to develop anything. I mean, there's states where projects are done before a permit is issued in Pennsylvania. In Arkansas, the governor mocked Pennsylvania when U.S. Steel said that they're not going to invest $1.2 billion in the Edgar Thompson plant in Western Pennsylvania. And Arkansas was trying to attract U.S. Steel, come invest down here. And the governor gets up on stage at a press conference and promises U.S. Steel that your project will be done in Arkansas before your permit is approved in Western Pennsylvania. And that's just embarrassing. And that was an Allegheny County problem. That was also a state problem. And people, forget that the state had a hand in that as well. So are we attracting companies? Not at the rate we should. And we have such opportunity to. We've such an abundance of natural resources, whether it's natural gas, coal, potatoes, all kinds of water access. Our ability to transport goods across the Commonwealth and to get it to the most favorable markets in the world. The northeastern part of the United States is really the most valuable market in the world, where people buy goods all the time. We have quick access to that. We have access to capital. We have all the ingredients to reindustrialize Pennsylvania. And our problem always comes back to Harrisburg won't get out of the way. And it's become, as a legislature, it's become frustrating. And I think you're starting to even sense some frustration from the governor as well. And so this bipartisan frustration is, I think, what's led to us coming together in the Competitive Caucus and said, we're losing in Western Pennsylvania. We're losing in Southeast Pennsylvania. We're losing Northeast Pennsylvania, South Central, Northwest, all over Pennsylvania. Let's stop losing. We all like to win. I mean, everyone wants big projects. Everyone wants their constituents to have jobs. We want growth. We want our kids staying here. We have so much to offer. We have a resilient workforce. Let's keep them in Pennsylvania. Let's stop seeing Steeler fans filling up stadiums in Arizona because everyone's moving to Arizona. Like, let's keep them in Western Pennsylvania. Let's keep them in Southeast Pennsylvania. Let's keep them across the Commonwealth. Who's not for that? Republican, Democrat, of course there's differences of opinion on how to best effectuate that, and we will disagree on those things. Energy policy in particular is an area where there will be stark disagreement, but we can all, I think, come together with the understanding that we want safe neighborhoods, that we want good schools, but we need good jobs, because if there aren't jobs, there's not going to be people here for safe neighborhoods. And if there's not people here for safe neighborhoods, what's the school system going to do? We need jobs. And so we're about jobs for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
How will the caucus operate? Will it generate legislation? Will it just try to persuade people?
Yeah, so both. I think one of our goals, though, even before we start going down that road, is we want to listen. We want to go around the Commonwealth and listen to different stakeholders. It is a very diverse Commonwealth. Pennsylvania is such a unique microcosm, really, of the United States. We have every type of subculture in Pennsylvania, other than like a coastal, because we don't have a beach. Although, if my friends from Erie heard me say that, they might disagree. There is kind of a nice beach up there, but. And so we have very diverse needs, and which means that we need to find the common issues that will benefit everybody. Because in a legislative body, it doesn't matter how good my ideas are if I can't get 102. And it doesn't matter how good 102 are if I can't get 26 in the Senate. And it doesn't matter how good everyone's are if the governor says, not my idea, not my plan, I don't want to go that way. So we got to build consensus, and we got to talk to people, and we got to let people know that we want to hear from them. We want to hear from the people that suffer the consequences of our actions, that have been suffering those consequences for decades, maybe a century, maybe longer than that. I often would like to go back and kind of understand where this all began. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure there's an interesting history in there somewhere. But we want to hear from people, and it's important for us that people know this is an honest review. We are looking for what are the obstacles to progress for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I don't have all the answers. I'm a legislator from the 15th District. I know Beaver County, I know Washington County, I know my region, I know Western Pennsylvania. I don't have all the answers. My friend Paul Friel is from Southeast Pennsylvania, Chester County. He knows his region better than anybody does. We all do as state legislators. We know our regions. We know our districts. That's our job, is to know our districts so we can accurately represent our districts. Our goal here is to understand each other so that we can look at what's happening there, what's happening here, and say, oh, wow, like you're dealing with that permitting issue too? Well, so am I. Maybe this is something that we can just get behind and ignore all the political hoopla that kind of happens around us. We have 2 years. Let's legislate. Let's get something done. Let's move this Commonwealth forward.
What have you heard from industry groups about the caucus?
I think there's some excitement. I really do. And it's something that I think there's such a recognition. And it's something that governors often talk about. Governor Wolf, Governor Corbett, and of course Governor Shapiro as well. They rave about Pennsylvania and this Commonwealth and how wonderful of a state it is. And it is. I mean, this place is, we have resources and assets that I didn't understand until I traveled around the state. Number 3 producer in potatoes. We used to be the number 1 producer in potatoes. I had no idea. And it's because there's a certain elevation and certain soil that's good in a certain part of the Commonwealth. And that's why we have a lot of potato chip manufacturers and stuff like that in South Central Pennsylvania. It's just little fascinating things. And there's little jewels all around this Commonwealth. The very first nuclear power plant, commercial nuclear power plant in my district, in Beaver County. 1957, I believe, Eisenhower was there to commission it, somewhere in that time frame. The largest, second largest, maybe second largest, it might be the largest after they figure out everything that's there, natural gas deposit. Coal mining is still going. We're not burning as much here, but China's building like 100 of them a year, and they're getting their coal from somewhere, which that whole system needs reform too. We're going to talk about environmental issues, but we've talked about it, and we've been hearing from governors and even us legislators. And I've been here 6 years, and I know that's not a very long time, and we've made some progress. We've cut the corporate net income tax. That was very important. We've changed a little bit. We've started the process on net operating loss. Very important. Let's talk about permitting. Very important. We worked on keeping our streets safe and supporting our law enforcement. Very important. But there's so much more we could do. This Commonwealth can be the keystone for the United States economic engine. And that we were at one point. And what's remarkable is it's the same ingredients. Back then it was natural resources. We had coal, we had oil, we had access to rivers so that we can get our steel, iron, and steel across the United States very easily. We had railroads coming through, access to capital, access to markets. It was our mills that built America, and not just in Southwest Pennsylvania, but all over the Commonwealth. And there's no reason why it can't be our factories that rebuild the United States of America. In fact, I think if America is going to come back and start making things again, it has to come back in Pennsylvania. We are so well positioned to do it. Ohio has certain attributes, and mainly a government that for the last 10 years or so has been razor focused on it. West Virginia is getting far more focused on it, but they don't have the same advantages we have. We have such inherent advantages, and capital is like water. It's just going to flow to the place that it's easiest to go. And we got to make sure that we remove the obstacles to capital, not in a way that makes it so companies are irresponsible. We're not going to do that. But there are so many things like efficiency and permitting, simple things like reforming our tax code that'll bring more revenue. That means that we can bring more jobs to our region. And ultimately, our kids, our grandkids, they can stay in Pennsylvania, enjoy here, because it is the best place on the planet. And I'd like to see that for my children and their generation.
President Donald Trump has proposed 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico. Both countries have said that they'll retaliate with an equal percentage of tariffs. ABC 27 reports that Canada is Pennsylvania's biggest foreign trade partner at $14.3 billion of annual exports from Pennsylvania in 2023. And Mexico is Pennsylvania's number 2 foreign trading partner, $5.4 billion annually. How would tariffs like that affect the business climate here in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's interesting. The president, this isn't a secret. I get a kick out of everyone going nuts about Elon Musk and that as well, and the tariffs, stuff like that. And the reason I get a kick out of it is he campaigned on this. He talked about tariffs and President McKinley during the campaign trail. It's not like this is a secret that this was going to come. Same with Elon Musk. He announced that he'd be the head of this department to make government more efficient, which is remarkable how they're claiming that somehow is totalitarian, is making government less powerful, is somehow an act of, big government, which is just makes no sense whatsoever, and it's just intellectually dishonest. But as far as tariffs go, growing up in the Pittsburgh region in western Pennsylvania, I think it's important, and I'm not sure about other parts of the country, but my feel is it's probably true as well. We heard from elected officials since the time I can remember that the reason our mills shut down was because Wall Street was investing in China, and there was no one protecting us with tariffs. The tariffs went away, we opened up free trade, and Wall Street was just pouring money because capital goes to the place of easiest resistance. They wanted cheap labor, and so they put all the money there. I'm fair, not fair. I'm just telling you what elected officials for decades have been saying. Republicans and mainly Democrats have been saying as the problem why these companies were moving. So take that as a backdrop, as the mindset of many people in what's so-called Rust Belt, which I can't stand that term, because if you've ever been there, it's beautiful. There's no rust anywhere in western Pennsylvania. It is an absolutely gorgeous piece of land, and it's, in my estimation, the best piece of land on the planet. But it's so maybe it's a little different on the other side of the state, closer to New York, closer to Wall Street. There's financial interest in Philadelphia, so there's different mindsets, right? But as far as we're concerned, tariffs aren't really a dirty word. Dropping tariffs was used as an excuse for, mills shutting down. Nixon, I believe it was Nixon, started some of it, and then Reagan, and then the NAFTA agreement happened, and so from a public perception standpoint, this is viewed very differently. And when President Trump announced tariffs, sure, will it have a negative impact on certain industries? I think people don't give President Trump nearly enough credit for the strategy he employs. President Nixon had a strategy that he said the madman strategy, and I'm paraphrasing. And he would make his opposition, whether it's foreign countries or otherwise, just uncertain what's going to happen. And so that makes them nervous, and they're not sure what can happen. Anything can happen, so they need to be very guarded in dealing with them. President Trump is a master at strategy, and I think we saw it. Within a couple days, Mexico had to change tune. So did Canada, because yes, 0.5%, I believe it is, of our GDP is dependent on goods to Canada. It's something like 20% of Canadian goods are dependent on goods to the United States. That's not a fight they want, and Mexico might be worse. So that type of leverage, I'm not offended by using every vehicle possible to enhance the interest of the United States within reason. I'm not calling for military exercise. I'm just saying, his strategy, is it outside the box? Yes. Is it working? I think it is. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of it working and winning as we go forward.
We've been speaking with Representative Josh Kail, who's a Republican from Beaver County and Washington County. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for being here.